Hi, welcome to Breaking the Political Cycle. I'm Nick, and in this video, I'm going to be discussing the psychology of Republicans. So, to give a little background, because it's hard for me to talk about this without getting a bit personal. My father was a conservative. He was a Republican. He was a segregationist. He was a bigot. He was a narcissist. He was abusive. I often say the only thing he gave me was money and PTSD. And my mother was a Democrat who was his enabler. She enabled every last bit of his physical abuse, his mental abuse, all of it. And for the longest time, she got a free pass. She got a free pass because you want to have good parents. And if you can't have good parents, plural, you want to have a good parent. So by default, the one that doesn't beat the hell out of you becomes the good parent. And how does this relate to the Republican Party? Well, a while back, you may have heard the call from Lauren Boebert's son. That call, when that call happened, when that call was released, it triggered my PTSD. And for the longest time, it hadn't been triggered before that. I had actually gotten to a really good place through therapy, reading various books written by professionals in the field of psychology. And it had been a while since my PTSD was triggered. But that triggered it hard because I recognized that call, because I'd made that call. And the second call disturbed me even more because I know that one too. When you have an abusive parent and then an enabler parent, what happens is the abuser parent can do whatever they want to you and the rest of the family. And then you go for comfort or aid to the enabler parent because they're the one not beating on you. And what they do then is have you recant or lie or cover up. They may use intimidation and fear. Say, I know my parents told me that if I told them that how I was being abused at home, they would take me away and put me somewhere where I would be abused even worse, even in a sexual manner. And so I shut the hell up because I'm like, well, I'm already getting it bad. Why do I want to get it worse? And so these type of parents, you see them. These Republicans, you see them out, you see them being violent, you see them being angry, you see them being bigoted, you see the way they behave in public. And I believe there's a misconception that a lot of people have that they go home and they act better. And that is not true at all. It's much more likely that when they go home, they act worse. Because when you're out in public, if I'm out in public and I'm protesting and I just walk up and punch a guy in the face, there's a chance there's going to be consequences. There's going to be witnesses. There's going to be people who I can't intimidate into lying for me, into backing me up and whatnot. But when you're at home and everyone at home is your victim, you can do whatever you want to those people. And that's what a lot of children are going through. And so when you hear Republicans cry, oh, what about the kids? Yeah, what about the kids? What about your kids? Yeah, and it's disturbing, and it leads to more of it because I've had great breakthroughs in my mental health. It took a lot of work and a lot of years. But most people don't get to where I'm at. Most people who go through what I went through, like Lauren Boebert's kids seem to be dealing with, they don't often get to where I'm at. I asked my therapist one time, what happens to people like me? Because I know most of them don't get to this point. And he told me, well, they succumb to drug abuse. They become junkies. They end up in jail. They do take part in risk-taking behavior that ends their life prematurely, or they turn into their abusers. They continue the cycle of abuse, and that's actually what this channel is. The name of it is based on. It's breaking the political cycle. The political cycle of abuse is what I'm here to break, and so this topic is very near and dear to my heart. It's very personal. And one book that helped me get to the other side of my trauma was a book by Dr. Lindsay C. Gibson. And her book is strictly about parenting. There is no politics in it. It is just about parenting and being a child of emotionally immature parents. The book is called, again, written by Lindsay C. Gibson, cannot recommend it enough. It's called The Adult Children of Emotionally Immature Parents. And it wasn't until I read that book that I realized how abusive my mother actually was. That book opened my eyes. Again, when you're the non-violent parent, you tend to get a free pass. And she had gotten a free pass for almost 40 years. And it wasn't until I read that book and I'm like, oh, hey, screw her too. and I'm not close with my family that I was born into. I have my own family now, and we are not repeating the cycles of abuse. I honestly, growing up, I knew that my parents were fucked up. I could tell they're both miserable. Obviously one of them is very abusive. And so I use them as an example, even when I was a child, of how not to be. But another side of this is that when you have emotionally immature parents, you don't develop emotionally in a proper way. So you have these parents that are emotionally immature, and these kids have to cater to those, to their emotional needs. And while having their own emotional needs neglected, a parent's role is to help guide their child emotionally to the correct responses. Obviously, Lauren Boebert's parents never did this with her, and then her and her dick flashing husband, they're passing that on to the next generation. And so this a good chunk of this video is not just for the survivors of this type of abuse, but I want community members to know, if you are the parent of a kid and they have a friend who is like the Boeberts or like my family, you may notice that they don't act quite normal, because at home, it's all an act. They've never been emotionally trained or taught properly how to process emotions, how to properly react emotionally to various situations, because their entire life they have had to figure out what their emotionally immature parents' needs were and cater to them. And it's all for survival. They're doing this. They're playing a role. They're acting, and I'm talking like they deserve Oscars. They're acting, and it's for survival. I remember I often tell people, the waitress at Kenny King's at KFC didn't know that we were being abused, because when we were there, we put on an act. We were a happy middle-class family and all that other BS, but we weren't. My mom was being abused by my father. I was being abused by my father. And so, but you're out in public, you have to put on an act. You have to play the role. Otherwise, what's he going to do to us when we get home? And I'm not the only person that's gone through this. There's lots of people who have gone through this, are going through this, and are doing these things to their kids because they went through this, and they are either unable to get the help they need or don't want to. In this country, we put a big stigma on mental health. There's a lot of people who still believe that if you go to therapy, that means you're crazy, and it's not. It means that you are trying to fix the damage that has been done. You're trying to better yourself so that you can move forward in more positive ways. And so if you're a parent of a kid and they have a friend who's often over at your house, also know if they're at your house a lot, they're avoiding going home. I would purposely miss the bus to avoid going home. I would find any reason to not be at home because home was hell. Home, I did not feel safe. I actually slept with a knife under my pillow starting at the age of 11 or 12 because I thought my father was going to murder me. And so a lot of Republican kids, again, you see these Republicans out here, you see them yelling, the Jews will not replace us. You see them marching and being all bigoted. There's not an off switch for that. They go home and that, if anything, it's a dial and it gets turned up to 11 once there aren't anybody around to hold them accountable or call them out. Because again, everyone at home is their victim. And so, I'd like to read two specific passages that really, because like in Lindsay C. Gibson's book, The Adult Children of Emotionally Immature Parents, she lays out 4 types of emotionally immature parents. And I have never in my life met a Republican that didn't fall into one of these categories. So I'm going to read 2 of them right now that you will probably be able to pick out multiple members of Congress that fall into these categories. There's the emotional parent. Emotional parents are run by their feelings, swinging between over-involvement and abrupt withdrawal. They are prone to frightening instability and unpredictability. Overwhelmed by anxiety, they rely on others to stabilize them. They treat small upsets like the end of the world and see other people as their rescuers or abandoners. Hell, that sounds like Trump. Rejecting parents engage in a range of behaviors that make you wonder why they have a family in the first place. That also sounds like Trump. Whether their behavior is mild or severe, they don't enjoy emotional intimacy and clearly don't want to be bothered by children. Their tolerance for other people's needs is practically nil, and their interactions consist of issuing commands, blowing up, or isolating themselves from family life. Some of the milder types may engage in stereotyped family activities, but they still show little closeness or real engagement. They mostly want to be left alone to do their own thing. Right there. That's more than half the Republican Party is those 2. And again, they don't go home and turn that off. There is no off switch. So if you're in a community and you know that there's families like this in your community and that their kids may be dealing with this at home, if they're acting out, have compassion, because they were never trained right to deal emotionally with the real world, and they're hurting emotionally. Deep inside them, they are hurting a lot. And so please, if you know people like this, if you know kids like this in your neighborhood, maybe if you know kids like this in your neighborhood, maybe they're a friend of your child's, have compassion for them. Have patience with them, because they don't get that at home. They don't get the compassion. They don't get patience. They don't get love, because emotionally immature parents are more emotionally involved in themselves. They don't do the things that normal parents should do for their children. And this actually leads me to another issue I have found in trying to kind of better understand what I went through personally, and to kind of work on gaining some closure. I decided to reach out and get some information. I had reported my abuse to a teacher when I was in school, and I had reported my abuse on another occasion to a law enforcement, a sheriff's deputy. In Ohio, since the 60s, it has been the law that government employees like teachers and whatnot, law enforcement, I believe even doctors, are legally required to report abuse. And I know the cop didn't report it. The pig did not report it, because the pig, when I told him I was being abused, he told my father that as long as he doesn't leave any visible bruises, that he can beat me till I'm dead. So I know the cop didn't give a rat's ass and report it, but I figured maybe the school official did. And I just wanted to know if anyone actually tried to help me. So I reached out to the departments that handle this type of thing. And a fun fact about Ohio, apparently. So in the 60s, they passed this law saying that you are required to report abuse. Cool story, bro. I bet they were patting each other on the backs going, hey, we did a good thing for the kids of Ohio. They did shit. They did nothing for the kids of Ohio, because here I've learned that those are sealed. Those reports and things like that, those are sealed even from the victims. 30 years after, 20, 30 years after the fact, those are still sealed from the victims. So if you contact them and you're like, I want to know who reported my abuse, or if my abuse was ever even reported, they won't tell you anything. They recommend you get an attorney. So if your abuse and all the other stuff wasn't enough, now, hey, while you're dealing with this, with your mental health and everything, and you've already been set back in life, because, I mean, I know I've shot myself in the foot a bunch of times, career-wise, because of the way I reacted to certain situations, because of my trauma. And so, like, yeah, where is the enforcement? If you can't prove that you've been wronged, how can you report it? Like, if your car is stolen, you walk out, you walk out to go to work, and you see a stranger, they get in your car, they jam it in reverse, haul out of the driveway, flip you the bird as they drive away. You witness that. You can call up law enforcement, you can call up whatever authority, and you can be like, hey, I just watched somebody steal my car. So there's proof the crime's been committed in that your car is gone and you saw it happen. How do you prove that somebody did not report child abuse if it's sealed to everybody, even the victim? There's no way to prove it. It's unenforceable, which means the law means nothing. And so, yeah, if you're in Ohio, the victims of this type of abuse need your help more than some others might, because there's no recourse for them. There's no after the fact healing, closure, hey, what happened to me type of thing. It's going to be harder for them. And I'm sure they're not the only state like this. Ohio, you may know as Florida of the North. That's what I call it. I'll never fucking go back there. I hate Ohio. Stay in Cali. But yeah, that is kind of the long and short of it. We are in a major mental health crisis. We need, there's no way to really address it. That's the other thing, is we don't have universal health care. And let's say tomorrow, poof, magic wand, snap my fingers, we have universal health care. Cool. We don't have enough therapists to accommodate the mental health crisis that we are facing. And so even if all the people with mental health issues, even if half the people with mental health issues that are causing problems in society, like the anti-democratic psycho terrorists on the right, even if they wanted to go get help, the help isn't there. There aren't the people. There's not enough people to help them. There's not enough psychologists. And hey, well, we'll just encourage people to go to college and become, well, sorry, people can't afford college. So there's probably plenty of people out there who would love to become psychologists and help people, but they can't because they can't afford college. And then the few that do, there aren't enough of them, and then there's not enough access to them. So it is a multi-layered issue that has led to this mental health crisis that we are in. And for as much as the Republicans love to scream, what about the kids? What about them? What about them? Because there's plenty of kids in this country that are falling through the cracks, being abused, violently abused, having to live with this trauma, and it's hindering their success, it's hindering their futures, it's hindering their ability to be part of society in productive ways. Because I know, like, and it manifests itself in some of the craziest ways. I remember learning about my issues, and one thing that I would do is I would become very promiscuous when I got stressed. And you're like, how does one lead to the other? But it's crazy. I would be, if I were stressed about money, which, you know, because I was constantly dealing with mental health issues, I was often struggling with money, you know, and then it's stress and everything else. And then you act out, you do, like, and it's crazy. So we need people in the community. If you try to be more open-minded, try to open your eyes and walk a mile in other people's shoes. If you see kids acting out, if you see them behaving oddly, put yourself in their shoes. Try to imagine what their home life might be like, and try to show a little compassion. Because, yeah, there's like a small percentage of people who are just born chemically imbalanced and it's a biological issue. But the vast majority of the mental health issues in this country are nature, are nurture and not nature. And these kids, they need nurturing. They need somebody who honestly, you know what would go a long way? Ask them if they're okay. And you know what? They're probably just going to give you the canned response. Yeah, I'm fine. But no, stop them then and go, no. Are you okay? Do you feel safe? Do you feel loved at home? Do you need help? And make sure that they know that they're welcomed in your home. If they need to after school avoid going home, let them come play. If they're friends with your kid, let them come play video games with them. But, you know, try to be more of a mentor. I did have one friend in high school whose dad, though a Republican, was a good mentor towards me. I mean, he encouraged me to read Sun Tzu's Art of War, which I still apply to my life today. So while me and him don't agree on anything political, he was a solid male role model for me, and he did help guide me towards, you know, opposite decisions that he would make. But, you know, I don't have a criminal record. I didn't succumb to drug addiction, things like that. Like, I got lucky. I went through all this, and the things that would normally destroy other people didn't destroy me. And, but again, I was lucky. There's a lot of people that aren't as lucky as me. And if you feel that maybe someone in your community is one of these people that aren't as lucky as me, you know, you can make a real difference in their life by just showing some patience and some compassion, and let them know that you care. So with that was that was a pretty personal and deep look at the mental health crisis in America and the abuse that goes on behind the scenes in a lot of Republican homes, for sure. And yeah, I really hope that people that see this take this to heart and do something with this information and show a little compassion, because it's scary when you're a kid, especially for me in the 90s. You know, now maybe it's a little easier, but even then, because you have access to information. I could not just Google, hey, what happens if I report my parents for abuse, to prove them wrong. But even now, you know, you speak out. If no one hears it and you speak out, then you may not speak out again. Lots of people fall through the cracks. It's a big problem. And, you know, I mean, hate to quote Hillary Clinton, but it takes a village. And, and yeah, you know, it's a big problem. And I really hope this helps. This is why I created this channel, is because I want to help people. This is not a business for me. I have a business. That's why I haven't been around. I've had to kind of put a few good weeks of hard work into my business. So I had to take a break from this. This is not anything that I care to turn into an income. I don't want your money if I ever were to get monetized. I don't want anybody joining the thing and paying to enjoy my stuff. If this channel ever gets monetized, I'll get my money from Google ads. You guys, I don't want none of your money. If you want to spend money, donate to charities that help people. But yeah, this is part of my activism. I really believe in this. And so thank you for tuning in. And if you believe in these messages, hit the thumbs up. That helps with the algorithm. Leave a comment. Basically anything that you do interacting with this video helps Google know that people want to see it and will boost it in the algorithm. And hopefully more people see this, because there's a lot of kids out there hurting. There's a lot of kids out there with emotionally immature parents that need our help and need our compassion. And if this helps even one, like, man, that'd be great. That would really be great. So thank you for checking out the video. I'm going to try to do more of these. I'm a lot more motivated now. I've been getting more involved in my community. I found some great leftist organizations in my area, and I've been going to meetings and talking to people. And so get out there in your community, get active, get involved. Everything doesn't have to be hopeless. We can fix this. We have the numbers. We just have to get them to show up. Thank you, and I'll see you in the next one.